Salutations guys, Shadow Speakerman here. I watched the latest episode of Skibidi Toilet frame by frame, and here are the things you missed in episode 76 part 1. To start off from the beginning, we are actually the POV of a large cameraman we have seen before. This large cameraman is none other than the cameraman we were the POV of in the 67th episode of Skibidi Toilet. We can tell this because both the cameraman we are seeing from and the large cameraman we were the POV of in episode 67 wield dual rocket launchers, and I don't think Mr. Boom would put an intentional detail like that if he was not trying to imply that these are the same cameraman. Now let's move on to the next detail. We now know that the Astro toilet in the beginning of this video was the Astro in the image Mr. Boom leaked, as they both are incredibly similar, and especially so when you freeze frame right here. As you can see, both this Obliterator Astro and the Astro in the leak share the same unhinged smile. But this detail does not compare to this kamikaze toilet we saw knock down the Obliterator, as this Skibidi is no ordinary individual, because this Skibidi is freaking Superman. That's right, it's a funny reference to the meme that has been trending all over YouTube recently. I certainly did not notice this at first, but when I was actually going frame by frame, I could see that this toilet is blue just like Superman's suit, and the head looks exactly like Superman, so... Moving on to something that you heard but may not have understood, and that would be whatever the Destructor Astro was saying when he attacked the Skibidi toilets. First he says, "How dare you resist?" Here, listen for yourself. And then right as he finishes killing the Skibidis, he says, "Traitorous scum." Here, listen for yourself. Shout out to Y Funtime for the point-outs of the dialogue in his video. But enough of the dialogue, for now we move on to the most important detail in this entire episode. Please like and subscribe as it greatly helps this channel. Now back to the very important detail, and that is the chair is back once again to haunt this episode with its presence. However, this is no ordinary chair sighting, as when we catch a glimpse of this infamous entity, we notice that it moves completely on its own, which means one of two things. Either there is an invisible entity who is always sitting in this chair, and it moved because the entity got up, or this chair is sentient and will overthrow the Skibidis and the Alliance and the Astro, as the chair is the most powerful entity in fiction itself. Okay, let me calm down, I'm getting a little too paranoid. It's just a chair that Mr. Boom is placing in his videos to troll analysts like me, and there is nothing to worry about. Or is there, as we instantly see it again far off spectating the battle that the POV is having. This chair needs to be stopped before things get out of hand. That's so freaking stupid. However, I am not done yet, as I found another weird object moving around on its own, and this is none other than the plant. Not only do we see this plant moving on its own, but it also has the audacity to appear twice in this episode. It's all clear to me now. The chair and the plant are working together to overthrow Mr. Boom himself and take over the Skibidi Toilet series and destroy everything. But there it is, right behind you. Now that I am done with my rambling, we can move on to a more subtle detail that the implications may be true. And that is this city is raining just like the city we saw in episode 75. Which can mean that, just like I predicted in my previous video, this may be the same city we saw in episode 75, and the events of this episode take place later that day. Now for a weird detail that might explain why these Astros seem so different from the rest. This detail is that as we see the large POV cameraman attacking the troop Astro toilet, we get to see underneath his helmet, and while I will go into more detail about these three symbols in a separate video, the main symbol's meaning is important, as we see this Astro has the astrology Earth symbol on his forehead, which could represent his status as a ground troop, which means these Astros focus more on ground battle instead of any of the aerial battle that the other Astros would be more efficient at. But anyway, right as the POV cameraman is knocked down from the Astro troop toilet, we see him get killed by another large cameraman, which is none other than the cameraman who attacked the mini scientist mecha in episode 70, as they both use the same weapon and look identical, which means we have both of the main large cameramen in this battlefield. But the returning cast does not stop there, as another familiar face shows up. He shows up right as the large cameraman duo is in trouble, and this familiar face is the same camera strider we saw in episode 72. And now he is new and improved thanks to the scientist cameraman that was inside of him. Now for the final pretty small detail, and that is that you can actually see the scientist cameraman in this scene here before he opens up the Strider's armor shield. But with that, this is the end of my video. I hope you learned a lot of details you missed originally, and that this video was helpful. But before you leave, I would greatly appreciate it if you liked and subscribed, as it greatly helps push this video to other people who miss details as well. So with all that being said, this has been Shadow Speakerman. Peace.